Hello and welcome to Best Binocular Reviews. My name is Jason. In this Vortex Razor UHD 10x42 Binocular review, I'm going to be going over the main features, highlights and weaknesses of these binoculars and scoring them out of 10 in 6 of the key areas. In this way, at the end of the video, we're going to get a total score that we can then use to compare them against the hundreds of other binoculars that I've fully hands-on tested and reviewed here on BBR. And we're going to start right now. The American brand Vortex Optics has seen a rapid rise in both their stature and popularity, and are now most certainly considered to produce some of the finest binoculars you can find anywhere in the world. And sitting right at the top of their now really impressive lineup is the Razor series. This range is one that I have a lot of history and experience with. Indeed, this HD version of the Razor won the BBR Binocular of the Year award way back in 2012, and to this day I still consider it to be one of the very best binoculars that I've ever used. However, Vortex has now released this newer UHD version of the Razor, which supersedes the HD Razors as their flagship range and boasts a number of improvements on what was already a stunning instrument. So in this review, I'm going to be going over these advertised improvements and to discover whether they actually are worth it and do make a difference to the binocular itself, or indeed is it just marketing hype and should you probably just stick with the old HD version. I will also be covering many of the other main features and specifications, as well as taking a look at some of the weaknesses that these binoculars have. However, please note that whilst I aim to make this video review as comprehensive as possible, there are many important details, as well as things like comparisons with other similar binoculars and technical specifications and details that I just cannot include in this video, otherwise it would go on and on for hours. So the idea is, this video should be used in conjunction with my more complete review of these Vortex binoculars on the BBR website. Therefore, I highly recommend that you first watch this video that will give you a good understanding of their main strengths and weaknesses, and then click on the link in the description that will take you through to the more in-depth review on the BBR website. Also, just a quick word about the scores. In case you are wondering, these are based on all the features and details in my full review and not just the highlights used in this video. Right then, with all that said, on with the review. These Vortex Razor UHD 10x42 binoculars are advertised by Vortex as having a true open hinge design, which I usually describe as a top hinge design. Whatever the case, it is a relatively thin bridge that connects the two barrels and is positioned closer to the ocular lenses than the objectives. This has the effect of opening up more space on the barrels for you to grab onto and thus get a better grip. If you are like me and often carry your binoculars one-handed without the use of a neck strap or a harness, then this seemingly insignificant detail can actually be quite important. The less amount of material used in the making of this thinner bridge can also result in a decrease in the overall weight. But at the same time, it also means that there is the potential for the bridge to be a little less robust and thus more likely that the barrels become misaligned should you accidentally drop them. However, to me the bridge feels nice and strong, and I would say it's about as robust as any binocular that I've used, even those with thicker or double hinge designs. The hinge itself also has what I would describe as the ideal level of resistance to movement, meaning that I can open and close them easily enough, but at the same time they remain at my desired setting. Speaking of which, this Vortex Razor UHD binocular has an IPD or an interpupillary distance range of between 5.6 and 7.6 centimeters, with the hinge fully open, which is pretty conventional for a 42mm roof prism binocular and thus should cater for the vast majority of users out there. As with the predecessor, the new Vortex Razor UHD binoculars have a very hard and relatively thin rubber coating. These properties mean that the armor offers less cushioning from impacts than instruments using a thicker, softer rubber. I also find that soft, spongy rubbers generally offer a higher level of grip. However, Vortex Optics have largely negated this problem by imprinting a very fine texture into the armor. This fine pattern also makes the surface less reflective than a smooth one, and thus in a small way adds to the camouflaging, which for some users where you need to remain hidden, like hunting and security purposes, can be important. Also important is the fact that the armor jacket fits very tightly onto the chassis underneath, and so there is no chance of it slipping or moving about, which is something that really annoys me on some lesser quality instruments. Another advantage to hard rubbers like this is that in my experience, they tend to be slightly longer lasting and less prone to becoming tacky and perishing over time. In general, the twist up and down eye cups on these Vortex Razor UHD binoculars are excellent. Under the thin rubber coating, the cup has a metal body, I assume aluminium, but it's definitely not plastic, which you often find these days. Metal is not only more robust, but certainly is part of the reason why the twisting mechanism on my sample is so smooth and lacks any sort of free play or looseness. These cups have one fixed click stop midway between fully extended and the fully twisted down position. However, should you need even more personalization in getting the eye relief exactly right for your needs, I found that there's just about enough resistance of movement to enable me to position the cups at any point along the pathway and have them stay there even when you press them quite firmly against your face. Although having said that, just a bit more resistance would have been a little bit better. However, for the majority of users, this will be a non-issue, as those who don't use glasses will usually have them in the fully extended position, whilst eyeglass users will probably have them completely twisted down. This 10x42 version of the Vortex Razor UHD has an impressive 16.7mm of eye relief. This indicates to us that they will be suitable for most users who wear glasses or some sort of eye protection. I tested this by fully twisting down the eye cups and wearing my sunglasses, and at this setting I was easily able to achieve the entire field of view with no sort of dark rings forming on the outer limits of the view. When it comes to the focus wheel on this Vortex Razor UHD, I would sum it up by stating that it is very good, but not quite at the level that I would describe as being outstanding. To be fair to Vortex, it is excellent in all the most important areas, but just falls short when it comes to some of the more finer details that can separate the very good from the truly excellent. What I mean here is, whilst it is very far removed from the generic ones used on millions of mid-range and cheap binoculars, the faceplate and the main body of the wheel look to me to be made from plastic, which is a bit of a shame as some high-end binoculars will use metal here. The action of the focus wheel is very smooth, with absolutely no stiff sections or free play anywhere along the entire focal range. With its deep ridges and soft rubberized track on the outer surface, there is plenty of grip on the wheel. This, in combination with the fact that it is reasonably large, I think I mentioned to about 30mm in diameter and 22mm long, and the fact that it sits quite proudly above the barrels, means that it is easy to reach and use even whilst wearing thick winter gloves. The gearing used on this focusing mechanism is an interesting one, as to adjust the focus from one extreme to the other takes just short of 3 full turns. This amount of turning of the wheel is quite a lot more than the average, which is about 1.5 turns. So the advantage of this is it makes fine-tuning the focus to get your image 100% sharp just that bit easier, which is definitely something I noticed when using these binoculars. However, on the negative side, it does just take that little bit longer to make large focal adjustments. So this is something to definitely keep in mind if you often go from studying nearby things like butterflies or insects to trying to view an eagle or something soaring in the distance, and you need to get there quickly before it disappears. Used to calibrate your binocular to your particular eyesight, the Diopter adjustment wheel on these Vortex binoculars is excellent. Positioned in the normal spot, just below the eye cup on the right eyepiece, it turns nice and easily, which on most binoculars would be an issue, because once you have set up your binoculars, it is only rarely that you want to move its position, and thus accidental movement is undesired. However, by pushing the ring downwards towards the objective lenses, you can lock your exact diopter setting in place. Now I'll admit this is a small, and to some it may seem like an insignificant feature, but for me it is a definite indicator of quality and shows an excellent attention to detail that you don't often see on most instruments. If you're not entirely sure how to use a diopter, or indeed exactly what it does, I've added a link down in the description, as well as on a card somewhere up above my head there, that will take you through to my complete guide on how to set up and use your binoculars for your particular eyesight. One aspect on these binoculars that instantly stands out from the ordinary is just how big the ocular lenses are. Measuring a full 24mm in diameter, they match the largest that I've personally come across on a 42mm instrument. Larger ocular lenses potentially offer up a number of advantages to the user, but the most important is that it makes it easier for you to line up your eyes with them, and thus there's less chance of you getting dark rings forming on the edges of the view. Rather than the more widely used and less expensive achromatic doublet lens design that, as the name suggests, uses two lens elements within each lens. Vortex Razor UHD binoculars have apochromatic lenses that are usually made up of at least 3 lens elements. Whilst this additional piece of glass in each lens is certainly one of the contributors to the instrument being both heavier and a little longer than average, the advantage is that instead of just 2, an APO lens is able to focus 3 wavelengths of light onto a single point, and thus they are able to better reduce chromatic and spherical aberrations for a higher definition image. If at any time I mention a feature or a technical term that you don't fully understand, feel free to ask down in the comment section below and I will get back to you. Alternatively, just click through to the BBR website where I do have answers to most frequently asked questions. The biggest and probably the most important difference on the new Razor UHD when compared to the Razor HD and indeed the majority of other roof prism binoculars on the market is that they use the Abe Koning design of prism and not the much more widely used Schmidt-Pekin type. Abe Koning roof prisms are certainly more efficient at transmitting light because, like the Porro prism, they are able to reflect all internal light and thus do not need to use highly reflective mirror coatings to achieve 100% internal reflection. So whilst the very best Schmidt-Pekin roof prism binoculars with the use of very expensive dielectric mirror coatings are able to achieve a reflectivity of about 99.9%, it doesn't still quite match the total internal reflection that you get with an Abe Koning roof prism as used in these Vortex Razor UHD binoculars. Another small but really nice feature or / advantage of these Abe Koning roof prisms is that unlike the Schmidt-Pekin designs, where the light exits exactly in line with the entry path, it is possible to have the light exit slightly offset to the path of entry. This means that Vortex have been able to place the centers of the objective lenses a little further apart than the centers of the ocular lenses. And whilst this amount is not quite as obvious as that you find on a typical Porro prism binocular, it still offers a slightly better stereoscopic effect for improved depth perception. On the negative side, and one of the main reasons that more binoculars don't use the Abe Koning design, is that the shape of the prism is much longer and it is a little heavier, and thus you end up with a longer, less compact binocular. As well as many other high-end optical coatings that I do go through in the full review on the website, Vortex Optics also use their Armortech coatings on the exterior lens surfaces of these binoculars. These super hard lens coatings add a level of scratch resistance and makes it less easy for dirt, dust and oil, which often comes from your fingers, to stick to the surface. This means less frequent cleaning is needed, and when you do need to clean the lenses, less pressure is required, which further protects the glass and its coatings from any damage. Another area where this Vortex Razor UHD binocular really stands out from the crowd is with the included accessories. I say this because, as well as the usual assortment of lens covers, cleaning cloth and neck strap, the protective case comes with a strap that converts it to a fully covered bino harness. What is more, you also get an accessory pouch that you can either carry independently or attach to the front of the case using the Molly attachment system, and which can be used to carry things like a rangefinder or spare ammo. Right off the bat, and just by looking at it, you can tell that the protective case and bino harness is very well made and a whole lot of thought has gone into its design. Indeed, it is so good that it deserves a review all on its own, which is something that I do plan to do in the future. But for now, you'll just have to be content with my brief overview. Whilst you can certainly use it as a standard carry case, it is primarily designed to be used as a fully covered bino harness that sits on your chest. This is a fantastic addition because to buy one of these separately can be quite expensive. On the rear of the case, there are 4 quick release clips that you use to fix the harness onto. There are also 2 Velcro straps that could be used to attach the case to your belt, backpack or anything else. The harness itself is fairly typical in its design, and whilst it is unpadded, I found it to be easily comfortable enough even when I was testing it out in the field all day long. It can be adjusted in length and has 2 quick release tethers that you can fix to the binoculars so that you never need to have to worry about dropping your optics accidentally. The case has a semi-rigid design that feels comfortable against your body, yet offers a very good level of protection to your binoculars inside. The inside of the case is lined with a soft fleece type of material, whilst the outer looks to me to be made from a very fine nylon or cotton. If I had one criticism of the case, then this would be it, as I think this fine material could quite easily get damaged should you be operating in an area with a dense thorny bush, for example. The case has an elasticated flip-open lid design. This may not be quite as secure as a fully zipped closure, but it makes accessing your binoculars much easier and quicker. It is also far more silent than a zip, which if you need to remain undetected is an important feature. The binoculars themselves fit reasonably well with inside the case, making them nice and easy to take in and out and replace, but not so loose that they flop about too much inside. Indeed, the elasticated lid itself ensures that all movement is kept to a minimum. One comment I have here is perhaps the case could have been just a little bit deeper, as once you have extended the eye caps on your binoculars, the lid does sit quite high up. This is not a big deal, but it does to me look like they may have been designed for a more conventional 42mm binocular that is a little bit shorter than this Razor UHD. On each side of the bag there's a separate elasticated pocket, and on the front there's the Molly webbing. This is designed to accept the included accessory pouch or just about anything else that uses this attachment system. Designed to fit onto the front of the case, your belt, backpack, or anywhere else you have webbing, the included accessory pouch is another very welcomed addition. The case itself is very well padded and has a zip closure. Inside there is easily enough room to take something like a compact rangefinder, and it has a woven strap designed to accept spare ammunition. I really like the objective lens covers that come with these Vortex Razor UHD 10x42 binoculars. To the average user they may look very similar to most others, but there are a number of small details that for me sets them apart. Like many others, they are tethered to the binocular using a second loop that goes around the barrel of the binocular, which is great, but I have found that this loop often breaks. However, the Vortex ones look and feel to be made from a rubber that is thicker and tougher than most others, and thus I suspect will be longer lasting and less likely to break. Next, there is the fact that the covers actually fit into the ends of the barrels and not over them, as is usually the case, indeed as is the case of the older HD model. As well as having a nice tight fit, this just looks far nicer and makes them appear more part of the instrument and not just some sort of afterthought bolted on at the end. I also like that far from being generic and designed to be used by almost any binocular on the market, the ones that you get with this instrument are branded with the Vortex logo. Once again, this just adds to the overall look of the binocular in a more positive way than most. This is certainly not the instrument for you if you require a very lightweight 42mm binocular. The extra weight is something that you immediately notice as soon as you take it out of the box, and is confirmed once you take a look at the specifications. As you can see in this table, at 32.2 ounces, this Vortex 10x42 Razor UHD binocular is up there with the very heaviest 42mm binoculars I have ever tested. There is no doubt that the use of things like a magnesium chassis and not a plastic one contributes to this. But as you can see, there are many other magnesium instruments out there that weigh less, and indeed the older Vortex Razor HD, which also had a magnesium chassis, was also more lightweight. So the main reason that these are heavier is actually down to the improved optics. Another aspect that you can't help but notice is the fact that this Vortex Razor UHD is a little longer than your average 42mm binocular. Indeed, as you can see from this comparison, they are substantially longer than the HD version. As with the increased weight, this is once again down to the use of the Abe Koning roof prisms that have a more elongated shape to them. Whilst the actual padded section of the strap is excellent, I just feel Vortex Optics could go one step further, and instead of the traditional attachment system, they could have instead used quick release clips that match the ones on the Bino harness. This way, you would be able to swap between the harness and the neck strap just that much easier and quicker. So there you have it. I do hope that this highlights review of these Vortex binoculars has been of both use and interest to you. But as I mentioned at the start of the video, for a more complete version that contains tons more information as well as comparisons with other binoculars, and on top of that, places where to buy these binoculars to get the best deals, be sure to check out the link in the description below or in a card somewhere up there above. Also, if you did enjoy this video, please be sure to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe. These are things that really do help me and this channel to continue to bring you more and more content in the future, and it's something that I really do appreciate from you guys. So anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Cheers for now.